Dear students, good morning to all. Now we will going to discuss about circulatory system. Listen. Circulatory system. What is circulatory system? The circulatory system is responsible for transporting materials throughout the entire body. That is circulatory system. Which organs involved in circulatory system? Heart. Heart is a muscular organ. Okay. It transports nutrients, water, and oxygen to your billions of body cells and carries away wastes such as carbon dioxide that body cells produce. It is an amazing highway that travels through your entire body, connecting all your body cells. Circulatory system. What are the components of circulatory systems? Heart, blood vessels, arteries, veins, and capillaries. See the picture, students. This is a heart. Heart is a muscular organ. What is made up of muscles of heart? Cardiac muscles. Okay. Blood, veins, and arteries. Okay. Then next, circulatory system. Which gases are transported to and from the body cells by the blood flowing in the circulatory system? Oxygen is the gas needed for respirations and is transported to the body cells. Oxygen is the gas needed for transpirations and is transported to the body cells. Carbon dioxide, oxygen. What are the gases? Carbon dioxide and oxygen. Okay, listen. Next, circulatory system. The circulatory system carries two types of blood. What are the two types of blood? Oxygen rich blood, oxygen poor blood. What is the main difference between oxygen rich blood, oxygen poor blood? Oxygen rich blood traveling to the body cells, high oxygen content, low carbon dioxide content. Listen, oxygen rich blood, oxygen poor blood. Okay. Blood traveling to the body cells, blood traveling away from the body cells, high oxygen content, low oxygen content, low carbon dioxide content, high carbon dioxide content. Okay. Listen. Heart is the organ at the center of the circulatory system. It pumps blood around the body. Okay. Next, circulatory system. The inside of the heart is divided into two sections so that the two types of blood, oxygen rich and oxygen poor, are kept apart. Right side of the heart, left side of the heart. Right side of the heart, oxygen poor blood. Left side of the heart, oxygen rich blood. Okay. Heart structures, heart coverings. Pericardium covers the heart and the large blood vessels attached to the heart. Listen, heart covers pericardium, visceral pericardium, and partial pericardium. The heart is fully covered by the vessels attached to the heart, that is pericardium. Visceral pericardium, innermost layer directly on the heart. Partial pericardium lay on the top of the visceral pericardium. Okay, next, heart structure. Pericardium, protective sac of connective tissue, surrounds the heart filled with fluid. Listen, this is a heart pericardium. This is the heart is surrounded by a pericardium. Next, heart structure. Heart walls. Epicardium. Epicardium is outermost layer. Fat to cushions heart. Then myocardium, middle layer. Primarily cardiac muscles. Next, endocardium. Innermost layer, thin and smooth, stretches as the heart pump. See the picture, students. This is a structure of heart, aorta, pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, left atrium, left ventricle, right ventricle, ventricle septum, tricuspid valve, bicuspid valve. Next, myocardium, the muscle of the heart. Heart is a muscular organ, so the heart made up of muscles, strong and thick, composed of spontaneously contracting cardiac muscle fibers, can conduct electricity like nerves. Its blood supply comes from the coronary arteries. Next, four chambers, two atria, upper chambers left and right, separated by interatrial septum. Two ventricles, lower chambers left and right, separated by interventricular septum. Next, right atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. There are four chambers of heart. The human heart have four chambers of heart. What are the four chambers of heart? See the students, listen. What are the four chambers of heart? Right atrium, right ventricle and left ventricle. Four chambers of heart. Listen. What are the different functions? Blood to the lungs, blood to the body, blood from the body, blood from the lungs. The atria collect the blood. What are the main function of atria? The atria collect the blood that enters the heart. What are the main function of ventricles? What is the main function of atria and ventricles? What is the main function of atria? Collect blood that enters the heart. Collect blood that enters the heart. Then what is the main function of ventricles? The ventricles pump blood out of the heart. Okay, that is the main function of atria and ventricle. What is the main function of atria? The atria collect blood that enters the heart. What is the main function of ventricles? The ventricles pump blood out of the heart. That is the main different function of atria and ventricles. Okay. Then next step, as blood moves through the circulatory system, it moves through three types of blood vessels. What are the three types of blood vessels? See the students, is very important. What are the three types of blood vessels? Arteries, capillaries and veins. Arteries, what is the main function of arteries, capillaries and veins? First, arteries. What is the main function of arteries? Carry blood away from the heart. Then capillaries. Capillaries link arterioles to the vein. Link arterioles to the vein. And then veins. Carry blood towards the heart. Carry blood towards the heart. That's all. Next, students, blood vessels. Arteries, large vessels carry. What is the functions of arteries? Large vessels, structure of arteries and function, structure and functions of arteries. Large vessels carry blood from heart to tissues of body. Carry oxygen rich blood with exceptions of pulmonary artery. Thick walls needed to withstand pressure produced when heart pushes blood into them. Then capillaries. Capillary, what is meant by capillaries? The smallest blood vessels, that is capillaries. The walls are only one cell, thick and very narrow. Important for bringing nutrients and oxygen to tissues and absorbing carbon dioxide and other waste products. Next, veins. Once blood has passed through the capillary system, it must be returned to the heart. The walls contains connective tissues and smooth muscles. Largest veins contain one-way valves that keep blood flowing toward heart. Many found near skeletal muscles. When muscles contract, blood is forced through the veins. Listen, tunica media, tunica extrema, tunica intima. That is the veins. Next, pressure, blood pressure. The heart produces pressure. The force of blood on the wall of the arteries is known as blood pressure. Blood pressure decreases as the heart relaxes, but the rest of the circulatory system is still under pressure. Next, listen, students, listen carefully. What percent of your body is blood? How much blood do we contain? On average, 4 to 6 liter blood. Okay. We contain about a pint of blood for every 15 pounds of the body weight. Then, composition of blood. What percent of your blood is cellular? 45%. What percent of your blood is plasma? 55%. Then, composed of plasma and blood cells. Composed of plasma and blood cells. Types of cells: red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. Red blood cells, white blood cells and platelets. Then plasma. Plasma is a straw color, 90% water, 10% dissolved gases, salt, nutrients, enzymes, hormone wastes and proteins. Okay. That is the components of plasma. Listen, plasma proteins. There are three types of plasma proteins. What are the three types of plasma proteins? Albumins, globulins, fibrinogen. Albumins and globulins transport substances such as fatty acids, hormones and vitamins. Then fibrinogen. Fibrinogen responsible for blood ability to clot. Then red blood cells, most numerous type, transport oxygen, get color from hemoglobin, disc shaped, made in red bone marrow, circulate for 120 days. Listen, what are the types of blood cells? Red blood cells, white blood cells, then platelets. Plasma. Straw colored, 90% water, 10% dissolved gases, salts, nutrients, enzymes, hormone wastes and proteins. And then, listen, components of blood: red blood cells, this is the red blood cells, white blood cells, plasma, the yellow in color, see the picture, plasma, then platelets. The blood has three main functions. What are the three main functions of blood? Transport, protection, temperature regulation. Next, blood pressure is measured with the sphygmomanometer. What is the measurement of a blood pressure? Sphygmomanometer is very important, students. One more question. Blood pressure is measured with a sphygmomanometer. A typical blood pressure for a healthy person is 120/80. The kidney helps regulate blood pressure by regulating the amount of salt and water in the blood. Okay, the human body has 4 to 6 liters of blood. About 45% of blood volume is cells. The other 55% is plasma. Plasma is a straw colored fluid. Okay. Plasma as a straw colored fluid means what is mean by straw color? That is a pearl yellow color. That is a straw color. Okay. Plasma is 90% water and 10% dissolved gases, salt, nutrients, enzymes, hormones, waste products, and plasma proteins. Then red blood cells uh, look like a disc that are thinner in the center. They are produced in red bone marrow. They have no nuclei. They live for about 120 days. Okay, listen. Red blood cells look like disc that are thinner in the center. They are produced in red bone marrow. They have no nuclei. They live for about 120 days. Then white blood cells. White blood cells do not contain hemoglobin. They are less common than red cells. White blood cells are produced in bone marrow. Note this point, students. White blood cells do not contain hemoglobin. They are less common than red cells. The white blood cells produced in bone marrow, they contain nuclei. White blood cells, they have contain nuclei. White blood cells live for days, months or years. The white blood cells may live for days or months. Then platelets and blood clotting. The body has an internal mechanism to slow bleeding and behind healing. The bleeding stops because blood was the ability to form a clot. Okay, so what is platelets? Blood clotting is made possible by plasma proteins and platelets. Next, what is circulatory? Just to recall, students, what is the circulatory system? The circulatory system carries blood and dissolved substances to and form different places in the body. Then heart has a job of pumping these things around the body. The heart pumps blood and substances around the body in tubes called blood vessels. The heart and blood vessels together make up the circulatory system. Listen, the structure of heart, students, listen all of you. Artery, lungs, listen. Vein from the lungs, vein from head and body, right atrium, left atrium. Okay, right ventricle, left ventricle. That is the structure of heart, students. So practice this diagram. All of you draw and practice this diagram, students. Structure of heart. Listen, red blood cells. What is the component of blood? Red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets, then plasma. Next, red blood cells. A biconcave disc that is round and flat without a nucleus contain hemoglobin, a molecule specially designed to hold oxygen and carry it to cells that need it. Then they can change shape to an amazing extent without breaking as squeeze single file through the capillaries. Next, white blood cell, students. There are many different types and all contain big nucleus. White blood cells have contain nucleus. The two main ones are the lymphocytes and macrophages. The macrophages eat and digest microorganisms. Very important functions. Macrophages. What is the main function of macrophages to white blood cells? Macrophages eat and digest microorganisms. Okay. Then some lymphocytes fight disease by making antibodies to destroy invaders by dissolving them. Other lymphocytes make toxins to break down poisons. Listen, the fatty foods can block blood flow if blood cannot reach the heart. This can cause a heart attack. This can cause a heart attack. All of you know the heart attack disease, students? Okay. Vessel disorders. Okay, thromboplastic. Inflammations of vessel due to clot formations and poor circulations. The clot can become an embolus if freed. Listen, the directions of blood flow clot the vein. Thromboblastin. Next, blood pressures. The normal blood pressure considered to be 120 millimeter mercury. mmHg means what? Millimeter of mercury. Unless during the contractions of the ventricles. It is 80 millimeter mercury or less after the contractions. Normal blood pressure is written as 120/80 millimeter mercury. Then hypertension. What is mean by hypertension? The blood pressure higher than 140/90 millimeter mercury is called hypertension or high blood pressure. The hypertension can weaken the artery walls and make them less flexible. That is a hypertension, students.